The air was heavy with the earthy scent of dew-soaked soil, and the faint crows of roosters echoed across the land. Life here was simple, but for Sam, the eldest son of the O'Keefe family, simplicity had turned into hardship. Sam was born into love but not fortune. His father, O'Keefe, was a kind man who tilled the earth with pride. Sam and his siblings often accompanied him to the fields, their laughter weaving through the rustling of maize stalks. But those joyous days ended abruptly when O'Keefe collapsed in the middle of the farm one afternoon, clutching his chest. Sam was 10 when it happened. He remembered the panic in his mother's voice as she screamed for help, the way his father's strong hands turned cold in hers, and the silence that followed. The death of O'Keefe marked the beginning of their descent into poverty. Although there's never been riches before. Nosy, Sam's mother, became the pillar of the family. She worked tirelessly, taking up odd jobs, like weeding people's farms and selling vegetables in the village market. In fact, she did every decent job that was capable of putting food on the table for her and her children. Yet, despite her efforts, there were days when they went to bed hungry. Sam watched her struggle with guilt gnawing at his heart. It gnawed at his heart that he wasn't able to help. By the time he turned 11, Sam had become a beacon of hope for his family. His teachers praised his intelligence, often calling him the pride of the village. "This boy will go far," they said. But Sam knew that intelligence alone wouldn't pull his family out of their misery. He was in a country that had no much value for education. Every night he lay awake with many thoughts in his head. It was during one of those restless nights that Sam first thought about Amarora. Amarora was a name that stirred awe and admiration in Umuaka-born Chiku. He had been Sam's classmate in secondary school. The two had often competed for the top spot in their class, though their lives couldn't have been more different. While Sam remained in the village, struggling to make ends meet, Chiike left for Malaysia after secondary school. Over the years, stories of his success began to filter back to the village. It wasn't long before people stopped calling him Chiike and started calling him Amarora, a nickname that meant one who helps everyone. Every Christmas, Amarora returned to Umuaka in grand style. He drove expensive cars, wore designer clothes, and distributed money to villagers. Children sang his praises, women danced in his honor, and men envied his success. That year was no different. The village was abuzz with news of Amarora's return. His black SUV rolled into the village square, kicking up a cloud of dust. Sam watched from a distance, his heart pounding. The sight of Amarora reminded him of everything he wanted: wealth, success, and the ability to lift his family out of poverty. He knew he had to speak to him. The next evening, Sam approached Amarora's compound. The house stood out among the mud huts, its walls painted a bright white, with a generator humming in the background. Sam's palms were sweaty as he knocked on the gate. Amarora himself answered, his face breaking into a smile when he saw Sam. "Sam O'Keefe." "Long time, my brother," he said, pulling him into a warm embrace. "I am fine, my brother. I said that I should come and see you. You have forgotten the good old days." Sam said and chuckled. "My brother, how could I? I wanted to come the other day but there were too many people in my house." Amarora said defensively. "I understand, am I not in this village? Don't I have eyes? Even if I am blind, don't I have ears? Everyone knows how it is in your house." Both friends laughed out loud and shook their hands. Amarora brought out expensive wine and 2 glass cups and placed them on the table. They both sat beside his black shining car that Sam didn't know its name. They talked about many things. The way they used to compete those days in school. The way people always said that they would make it in life. It was a nostalgic story. Sam waved his head this side and that side. He hesitated, then spoke, his voice steady. "Chiike, my friend, just look at me," Sam said and sprang up. "Look at me, your good friend. See the way I am decaying in this village, I need your help. I want to go abroad. I want to make money. I am tired of this life. Amarora leaned back, studying him. Do you know what you're asking for? It's not easy. Life abroad is tough. It's expensive to get there and even harder to survive. I'm ready to do whatever it takes, Sam replied, determination shining in his eyes. Amarora nodded slowly. Come back tomorrow. Let's talk more when we haven't taken alcohol. The next day, Amarora explained the costs involved, passport, visa, plane ticket, and other expenses. The amount he mentioned made Sam's heart sink. It was more money than his family had ever seen. That evening, as he sat under the moonlit sky with his mother, Sam poured out his dreams and fears. Nosy listened silently, her face etched with worry. Sam, I understand your desire to help us, she said finally, her voice heavy with emotion. But selling the land your father left us, it's all we have left. Have you forgotten that your father died in that land? That his. Mama, Sam said, gripping her hands, I have not forgotten. This is our chance. If I succeed, I'll send money back, and we can buy more land. Please trust me. After days of agonizing deliberation, Nosy agreed. They sold the land and handed the money to Amarora. Their friends gathered a night before his departure from the village to bid Sam farewell. They prayed and blessed all the roads he would work on, including the sky the plane would fly. They splashed the blood of Jesus in every corner of the road, asking him to shield their son from every danger along his way. The following day Sam took his belongings and left with Amarora. The journey to Malaysia was long, but Sam's excitement overshadowed his exhaustion. When they arrived at the airport, Amarora handed him a bag. Carry this for me, he said casually. I need to handle something at customs. Sam took the bag without hesitation. But as they passed through immigration, officers stopped him. They opened the bag and pulled out packets of a white substance. Sam froze, his mind racing. This isn't mine, he protested, his voice shaking. It belongs to him. He pointed at Amarora, who stood a few feet away. Amarora's face was a mask of indifference. I don't know this boy, he said coldly. I've never seen him before. How can you say that? Please tell them the truth. Tell them that the bag belongs to you. Sam cried out in pain. Which bag? I have never seen this man before, Amarora said, staring at people. Perhaps, you are mistaking my face for someone else. I don't know you and I have never met you in my life. He said and began to walk away. Sam's world crumbled, he cried, but there's no one to help, to tell the truth. The officers arrested him, and within weeks, he was sentenced to life imprisonment. Back in Umuaka, months passed without any word from Sam. His mother and siblings were worried. Then Amarora returned with devastating news. It was on one cool Hampton night. Nosy had just finished her dinner and was about to sleep when Amarora came. At first she was happy to see him, but her happiness didn't take time before it disappeared. How about my son, he didn't come back with you, Nosy asked. I'm sorry, he told Ngozi, feigning sorrow. Sam fell ill and died shortly after we arrived. It was sudden, there was nothing anyone could do. Nosy collapsed, her wails echoing through the village. Villagers gathered and they all wailed to their satisfaction. People blamed the devil for what happened to Sam. Amarora was with them throughout the whole thing. He handed Nosy a bundle of money for Sam's burial. Nosy thanked him so much. People praised him for his generosity. The villagers rallied around Nosy, mourning the loss of a bright future. Sam's first night in the Malaysian prison was the longest of his life. The cell was small, damp, and smelled of decay. The iron bars felt cold under his trembling hands as he clung to them, staring at the flickering fluorescent light outside his cell. The voices of other prisoners, some crying, others shouting, echoed through the stone walls, amplifying his fear. Sam crouched in the corner of his cell, his heart pounding. The weight of the sentence, life imprisonment, hung over him like a death sentence. He couldn't believe what had happened. Hours earlier, he was a boy with dreams, standing in a foreign land with hope. Now, he was an inmate, stripped of his dignity and freedom. Why, he whispered to himself. Why did Amarora do this to me? The betrayal stung more than the prison bars that confined him. He replayed the scene at the airport over and over in his mind, the officers tearing open the bag, the packets of drugs spilling out, and Amarora denying ever knowing him. Sam slammed his fists against the wall, tears streaming down his face. I'm going to die here, for something I didn't do. The days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Sam struggled to adapt to prison life. Meals were sparse and tasteless, watery porridge in the mornings, a handful of rice in the evenings. The other inmates were hardened criminals, their eyes cold and their hearts colder. Mostly from Africans. Sam learned quickly to keep his head down and his mouth shut. But that didn't stop the whispers, the taunts, and the occasional beatings. His thin frame became thinner, his once bright eyes filled with despair. At night, the silence was the worst. In the quiet, his thoughts consumed him. He thought of his family, of his mother's tired hands, of his siblings' laughter. Were they still waiting for him? Did they even know what had happened? He wanted to scream, to cry out, to tell the world he was innocent, but the walls of his cell swallowed his voice. One night, Sam fell to his knees on the cold concrete floor. God, he prayed, his voice barely a whisper, if you're listening. Please help me. I can't do this anymore. I'm not strong enough. My family needs me, please help me. Tears streamed down his face as he groaned in anguish. He thought about his father, about the land they sold, about the dreams that had brought him here. It was a cruel twist of fate, and it felt like the end. Years passed, and Sam learned to survive. He found solace in small routines, cleaning his cell, reading the few tattered books in the prison library, and scribbling his thoughts on scraps of paper. Writing became his outlet, his way of holding on to hope. One day, an older inmate named Abdullah took notice of Sam. What brought you here? Abdullah said, his voice gruff but kind. Sam looked up from his writing, surprised. A friend and a brother betrayed me. Sam shook his head and explained everything that happened to Abdullah. Abdullah wasn't much surprised, he had heard of such things and that was why he would never advise anyone of anybody's bag at the airport. Anything could be in that bag. Anything. You've still got light in your eyes. Most people lose that here, Abdullah said, sitting down beside him. Sam smiled faintly. I don't know how much longer I can hold on. You hold on as long as it takes, Abdullah replied. In this place, hope is the only thing they can't take from you. Abdullah's words stuck with Sam. Slowly, he began to rebuild his spirit. He stopped wallowing in regret and started focusing on survival. He worked in the prison's small workshop, learned basic skills, and even taught other inmates how to read. As God may have it. 7 years later, a new president in Malaysia granted clemency to prisoners. Sam walked out of prison a free man, his heart hardened but his spirit unbroken. As he walked out of the prison gates, the sunlight blinded him. The warmth on his skin felt foreign, almost unreal. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the air of freedom. But his relief was short-lived. The thought of Amarora's betrayal burned in his chest. The man had stolen his freedom, his dreams, and nearly his life. Now, as he stood on the threshold of his new beginning, Sam vowed to make things right. I'll go home, he whispered to himself. And I'll make him pay for what he did. The journey back to Umuaka was bittersweet. Sam had no money, no belongings, and no idea what awaited him in the village. He traveled with a small group of Nigerian expatriates he met at the embassy, sharing stories of hardship and survival. When he finally arrived in the village, it was evening. The familiar sights and sounds of Umuaka stirred something deep within him. The dusty roads, the chirping crickets, the smell of wood smoke, it all felt like a distant memory. Sam approached his family's house cautiously, his heart pounding. The house looked different, worn and smaller than he remembered. He knocked on the wooden door, and when it opened, his mother stood there. Nosy froze, her eyes wide. For a moment, she looked as if she'd seen a ghost. No, he thought he had seen a ghost. She grabbed sand from the ground and splashed it on Sam. It was a serious belief that if you splash sand on a ghost, the ghost will disappear. But when she did it, Sam didn't disappear. Then, with a cry, she threw her arms around him. "My son," she sobbed, her voice shaking. "My son, you're alive." Sam held her tightly, his own tears flowing freely. "Mama, I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." Sam's siblings all came out and embraced him. Some of the villagers gathered immediately. Sam recounted everything, Amarora's betrayal, his arrest, the years in prison. His mother listened, the villagers listened, their faces pale with shock and anger. "That man," Nosy began, her voice trembling. "He told us you were dead. He made us bury an empty coffin. He is evil, how could he do this to you?" Another man said. Sam's fists clenched. "He will answer for what he's done. I will make him pay for everything." The days following Sam's return were filled with mixed emotions. The villagers were stunned to see him alive. Women whispered in shock, children pointed in awe, and the elders shook their heads in disbelief. Sam had been a memory, a bright young man they thought was lost forever. But the story of Amarora's betrayal lit a fire of outrage in the village. The man they had revered as a philanthropist and hero was now revealed to be a liar, a criminal, and the architect of Sam's suffering. Sam's mother, Nosy, took him to the backyard where a small grave was marked with a small plant. "We buried this for you," she said, her voice trembling. "Amarora brought money, said it was for your burial. We wept over an empty grave, Sam. He made us believe you were gone." Sam knelt by the grave, his hands shaking as he touched the soil. His eyes brimmed with tears. "Mama, I'm sorry you went through this. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from his lies." "It's not your fault," Nosy said firmly, placing her hand on his shoulder. "The fault lies with Amarora. He will pay for his wickedness." The news of Sam's return spread to all corners of the village. Amarora, who was still abroad, heard about it within days. The man who had once walked the village streets like a king now avoided even the thought of returning home. Sam wasted no time. He began gathering evidence to expose Amarora's double life. With the help of a few trusted villagers, he uncovered shocking details about the man who had betrayed him. Amarora's wealth, it turned out, was built on deceit. In Malaysia, he had married a wealthy woman who funded his lavish lifestyle. She knew nothing about his second wife and children in Umuaka. The truth was as vile as the man himself. Sam wrote a detailed letter to Amarora's Malaysian wife, explaining everything, the betrayal, the prison sentence, and the fake burial. He included photographs of Amarora and his family in Umuaka. When the letter was sent, Sam waited. Every day felt like an eternity, but he knew the truth had been delivered. He had been stripped of his clothes. Sam received a call from a friend abroad, who described the scene. "She took everything," the friend said. "The house, the cars, even his business accounts. She's divorcing him. He's ruined." Sam's chest tightened with satisfaction, but he wasn't done yet. Amara was deported to Nigeria shortly after. When he arrived in Umuaka, the villagers refused to welcome him. The man who had once been their pride was now their shame. Amara tried to avoid Sam, but he couldn't escape him forever. The confrontation happened in Sam's compound, where Sam stood tall, his voice steady but sharp. "You took everything from me," Sam said, his eyes burning with anger. "My freedom, my dreams, my family's peace. You thought you could destroy me, but I'm still here. And you're nothing." Amara fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "Sam, I'm sorry," he sobbed. "I was desperate. I didn't know what else to do. Your desperation cost me 7 years of my life." Sam shouted, his voice echoing through the compound, 7 years of pain, suffering, and regret. "You don't get to apologize and walk away." Despite the bitterness, Sam found himself tired of holding on to anger. At last he forgave Amara. His journey wasn't over. After hearing his story, Amara's Malaysian wife, moved by his resilience and integrity, decided to help him. She worked tirelessly to ensure Sam could return to Malaysia legally. Within months, Sam held in his hands the documents that would allow him to start a new life abroad. As Sam prepared to leave Umuaka once again, he stood before his mother. "Mama, I will make you proud," he said, tears in his eyes. Nosy embraced him tightly. "You already have, my son. Go and build the life you deserve." In Malaysia, Sam found work with the help of Amara's ex-wife. He started small, working in construction, saving every penny. But his determination and intelligence soon set him apart. Years passed, and Sam's life flourished. He sent money back home, bought back his family's land, and ensured his siblings had the education he was denied. Amara, meanwhile, lived out his days in regret and isolation. The man who once had everything now had nothing, not his wealth, and not his reputation. Sam's journey from despair to redemption became a tale that inspired many. He had risen from the ashes of betrayal to build a life of purpose and integrity. He helped many boys from his village to travel abroad. He gave some money and started a very lucrative business for some. Many people sang his praises. He built a borehole and health care for his people. Finally he became fulfilled as a man. In the face of betrayal, the greatest victory is not in revenge, but in rising above the ashes and reclaiming your life. Betrayal may break you, but it also teaches you to rebuild, stronger, wiser, and unshaken by the past. Hello champions, I hope you enjoyed the stories. Thanks for watching and listening to our stories. Please hit the like button, leave a comment below and subscribe to our channel. Thanks.